How's it going, everybody, and welcome into another episode of Mock Draft Monday here on the SFS channel. Today we've got a few special guests in today's video, but most notably, Eric is back on the camera for the first time since the NFL draft back in late April. He's going to be popping in some more videos here throughout the rest of this offseason, and especially heading into next regular season, as we're going to be roommates and making lots of content for you guys together during the NFL season. So, also, we've got some Discord members in today's video from the SFS community Discord that are entering in exclusively to today's mock draft. If you'd like to be a part of next week's video, all you gotta do, it's completely free, is head down in the description of today's video and click that invite link to join that up and be notified whenever we've got some cool community involvement to be going on for you guys. We've also got some cool giveaways as well. Just a couple more things. Eric would not be happy with me if I did not plug the social medias that he does a great job with in the top left-hand corner of your screen. And as always, make sure you go down and click that subscribe button if you're new, and turn the bell on so you never miss an episode. And let's get into today's video. Alrighty, here we go with today's mock draft. We couldn't quite fill up the entire sleeper lobby because of a couple of reasons. A, we need more of you guys to join that Discord community so that we can have a full mock draft in the coming episodes. And also, I had to pick a really weird time to start this video today. I'm actually going to the NBA Finals later this afternoon when this video is being recorded, so I had to make sure that I had enough time to A, record the video, edit it, and then make sure it's able to go live for you guys on Monday morning. So
he's repping right now.
Yeah, repping the Chris Middleton jersey. Hopefully he can show up for once and not score 11 points or whatever that disaster was that he had in Phoenix the other day. But yeah, so we had some obstacles to get over here, as it's about a 4-hour drive to Milwaukee for me. So I had to make sure I had time for that commute. But
we don't really agree with this order, do we? We want Dalvin Cook first, and then McCaffrey, and then Henry, and then Kamara. How's that?
Yeah, I think that Jokester here got himself an absolute steal in that back end there. This is a 12-team half PPR mock draft. CMC, I absolutely can't argue you if you're going to take him first overall, but personally, I like the floor and the stability of a Dalvin Cook just a touch more because of, A, the ridiculous amount of touches he gets in that Vikings offense, and yes, McCaffrey's right there with him, but with multiple injuries to multiple locations on the body last season, it's a bit of a reason for concern. CMC's a smaller back, and I don't think that any of those injuries were so significant that they're going to hinder his upside in the future, but it just kind of speaks to some potential durability issues, as he's had multiple extremely high-touch seasons now, and he may be showing signs of wearing down. So I love the pick of Saquon Barkley there at the 1-5. I think that as opposed to maybe picking a Derrick Henry and Alvin Kamara a little high, that's a great spot for those two players to go. Actually, I've got myself a draft pick that I don't typically like to do, and actually that's why I chose it. The 1.9 draft position is kind of gross if you ask me. I think
it's looking really nice right now, though, because there's some really valuable wide receivers that are falling.
I could go out there for a wide receiver.
The only issue is that we don't know if Devontae Adams is going to have Aaron Rodgers to throw to him, so that's the only issue.
And Aaron Jones actually goes here at the 1-8. I don't know if that might be a touch early for an Aaron Jones. I actually like an Ezekiel Elliott, who I might end up drafting here a touch better. We've got a really heavy RB start to today's draft. Eric, it looks like you're going to be stuck with some receivers or something like that.
Hey, that's okay with me. I'm hoping Kelsey's going to
I was going to say, Kelsey's another player you can consider. I actually, in the draft guide, talked about if you want to take Travis Kelce anywhere between the 10th and the 14th overall draft spot, I can't fault you for that because of the elite positional value and the elite positional advantage that he presents to players who draft him. Because even if you look at a George Kittle, a Darren Waller, the next two players on the draft board based off ADP, he's still a complete tier above those players.
He's a top 10 wide receiver.
I actually looked, yes, he's actually a top 3 wide receiver, I believe. I looked up the only player that averaged more fantasy points per game than Travis Kelce at the wide receiver position was Devontae Adams last season, and we all know how good he was last year. Had 34% of the Packers' target share, and pretty much, I don't want to say he carried Aaron Rodgers to his MVP season, but he had a big hand in making sure that happened because he had 18 of his 48 touchdowns. So a huge mark of that offensive production. I think I am actually going to go and invest into Zeke here. The reasoning for this pick is that Devontae Adams for me would have used to be this pick, but Aaron Rodgers still hasn't reported to camp. And Tyreek Hill, he saw an extremely high touchdown ceiling last year. That's probably going to be some sort of a drawback for him this season. So
this puts me in such a difficult spot.
Oh, because Kelsey went at the 111.
Literally atrocious. Oh, man. Okay, well, I don't think I want to risk it on Devontae Adams because I really don't expect Rodgers to play personally. I think he's gonna just hold out and not play at all.
I wouldn't be shocked
because I don't see that team wanting to trade him, and that's the only other circumstance where I think he's gonna play. I'm going to go back to my old reliable Stephon Diggs first. It doesn't really matter what order, clearly, because I'm at 12. But I think Stephon Diggs is a easily top 10, even top 5 wide receiver, clearly. So he gets so much volume from Josh Allen. And this is going to be year 2 of that. So I think it should only improve, honestly. But he was insane last season. He was a league winner, him and Josh Allen. And it helped me get into my league final.
Yeah, that nasty stack.
Against
Gavin. Eric got me in week 16 last year. I had Devontae Adams the night before. I was up by about 50 or 60 fantasy points the night before the Pats-Bills game. And I'm like, there's no way I can blow this. But I wasn't going to say anything because I just had a feeling that Allen and Diggs would do some dirty magic on me. And what do you have? 3 touchdowns, $150, and Allen did his thing, and I lost by like 3 points.
I was watching that game very intently. I was a full-on Bills fan, but I support the Bills. I'd love to.
So heck of a pick there, and I actually love the way you started your team off. Diggs and Cam Akers have insane upside, and I would argue that the floor for Diggs is just as safe to make that draft selection. So now I'm in a bit of a pickle here because I have to decide if I want to grossly reach on a Najee Harris and Antonio Gibson because I'm not loving Joe Mixon here, or do I want to just kind of go for the old head lineup and take me a DeAndre Hopkins? So we're looking at Zeke and Hopkins that have been in the league for what feels like forever. But back to that first round pick of Zeke, something I want to talk about more here on the channel is that I think Ezekiel Elliott is a lot more valuable of a pick than people realize. He's going to see that volume in the Dallas offense. I expect them to be better with Dak Prescott back this season. They're not going to be winning 10, 11 games this year, but I do think that they'll have the opportunity to enter a lot more fourth quarters with a lead than they were able to last season. That's going to be a big deal for them. And then you talk about the passing game that he got involved with last season, and even with an Andy Dalton, even with who are some of those other just Ben DiNucci and Garrett Gilbert that he was playing with? He was catching passes out of the backfield, being productive in a phase of the game that we hadn't been seeing him do prior in his career. So I love the upside here, and I think I'm going to go with the safety floor pick. DeAndre Hopkins catches over 70% of his targets, which is a massive number to be at and one of the best in fantasy football. Additionally, I believe he also saw 160 targets and racked in 115 of those for receptions with his first season with Kyler Murray, although having no offseason to develop that chemistry. So a lot of stuff going for Hopkins here. Low touchdowns, only 6 of them last season, so he should bounce back, improve that number, and become a beast in that Cliff Kingsbury air raid offense. So looking at the board here, really like how this team with the 1.6 is putting stuff together here. Calvin Ridley is an absolute steal at the 2.7. This is a player that I love the fact that he picked him before A.J. Brown. This is something that I've been talking about a lot here on the channel and talking about in the draft guide collection where I just filled out Calvin Ridley and A.J. Brown's draft profiles. Calvin Ridley's floor is so much safer than an A.J. Brown, and I would argue their ceilings are just as good as one another. So there's no reason you shouldn't be taking a Calvin Ridley first when he's going to see a lot more target volume. There's a lot more passes to be had in that Falcons offense, and there's just a better situation for him to give you safe fantasy numbers. And Kittle and Waller go back-to-back right after each other. That's an interesting way that things went there. How about that team at the 1.1 with Christian McCaffrey, Michael Thomas, Keenan Allen? They've got themselves potentially the RB1 in addition to 2 wide receiver ones. That's a really nice combination that they're putting together there. I also really love the combination in the stack that we see right now out of a Saquon Barkley and a Najee Harris. I think those are 2 RB1 potential backs. I think that Saquon Barkley has the potential to be the RB1 overall, and Najee Harris definitely has top 12 upside factored into his fantasy situation for this year. So who are you looking at coming back here?
Allen Robinson. Fantastic. Terry McLaurin and Allen Robinson right next to each other. That's how you want to see it.
There you go.
And Keenan Allen went right before, which is how you would view it, right?
Yeah, I have based off of the ADP battle I did last week. We'll have another one of those coming out probably tomorrow when you're seeing this video. Keenan Allen, I give just a touch more upside than Allen Robinson for the simple fact that he has Justin Herbert for 16 games, whereas Allen Robinson might only see that Justin Fields top-end QB play for 8, 10, 12 games, whatever it may be, as long as health doesn't play a factor here. Allen will have better quarterback play for a longer period of time, and both of these players are exceptional route runners. So, yes, it's very close for me, but I have to go with Keenan Allen by a hair, and I've actually got them separated by 2 players, or there's a player sandwich in between them in the draft guide rankings. But you got to go down and join that Discord if you want to have access to that potential giveaway, or you can just go check it out for yourself and get yourself access to that draft guide collection. But we're getting close to my next pick here. I should probably start scouting out who I would like to take with my next pick. Eric, you've got 2 back-to-back picks coming up here.
Yeah. I have a hope that I'm waiting on, but I have a feeling it's not going to come true. Because
I think I might know where you're going here.
With ADP, it's all running backs, so I may just get screwed over because I'm looking to get David Montgomery.
That's what I thought you were going for.
Or J.K. Dobbins, but you're probably going to go with J.K.
I'm
Dobbins.
looking for J.K. Dobbins. There we go. Perfect. I'm not a Clyde Edwards-Helaire fan. I think that we should personally be fading him all the way down. If you can see my screen right now, in between this Chris Carson and Josh Jacobs territory. The pass catching gives him a safer floor, in my opinion, than a Josh Jacobs, but I can't justify taking him above a Montgomery, a Chris Carson, a J.K. Dobbins, even a Miles Sanders I would put in there before a Clyde Edwards-Helaire, despite his own floor issues, just knowing the talent he possesses. So J.K. is an easy pick for me here. Give me the high upside running back who has RB1 potential, top 12 value there.
That's exactly what I was hoping for. My team could be one of those teams that has that league-winning player. I think David Montgomery is a guy who finished at 4th overall in running back fantasy points last season.
I believe he was either RB4 or RB6.
In half PPR, he was 4, I believe, and it was really a product of his great back half of the season. And that's when the Bears started figuring out how to run block with him and give him zone run blocking, basically. They couldn't make holes, and he's a patient runner. So they decided to just zone run and let him find a hole. So it was a good change. And the Bears' offensive line hasn't necessarily gotten better, but it's gotten younger. And I think that
Tevin Jenkins will be a
Tevin Jenkins
addition.
Is a great run blocker, so he should be important. They'll probably scheme up plays for him to run block. I can see that happening. They kind of tried to do that with Leno a lot. But now he's gone, and Tevin is going to be the main man. I went running back. Let's see where there's wide receiver value. I mean, Julio Jones, how much is he really going to take from A.J. Brown, or is Julio going to be kind of a flashy guy, the big guy in the field that draws attention away from A.J. Brown? I think Julio is still going to have value, but he's still been dinged up every year, and he's still getting older. He looks pretty good, but that team is not as much of a passing team as Tampa Bay. Chris Godwin is definitely interesting, and a guy that I haven't been hearing about enough is Amari Cooper. Even though there's a lot of
winding down, you got 5 seconds.
Even though there's a lot of pass catchers on that team, well, you know what? Okay. I took too long to talk. I'll just talk about this now.
There you go. Well, I decided.
But I do think Amari Cooper is someone who's important to look at because Dak is going to be back. And the Cowboys' passing offense is insane when Dak is there. And Amari Cooper is a touchdown machine. He will always find a way to get touchdowns. I don't know how he does it, but he always gets in there. I took Robert Woods because, as you know, Matt Stafford is now the quarterback for the Rams. And Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp were producing with Jared Goff. And Jared Goff is not a terrible quarterback, but he wouldn't be able to make the exciting plays.
He doesn't give you an elite fantasy season because he doesn't get outside the pocket, make the throws down the field, and allow these receivers to add on to and elevate their game. Really what he does is literally Robert Woods is an at the line of scrimmage screen player that catches passes and uses the great run blocking to find 10, 12 yards to catch.
Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp have the ability to kind of improvise and make their own plays, which is not something they could have done with Goff, but now with Stafford, it can kind of be that connection where they speak to each other with their eyes. It's just like Adams and Rodgers or Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. I think that those two players, not just Robert Woods, but also Cooper Kupp, who's considered the number 2 at this point, they will be able to get way more value and have maybe even more run after catch, which is something crazy to hear. But they will just overall have better fantasy value. But I would expect them to have more yards just in the air because they're going to be able to do longer, more accurate passing with Matt Stafford. But I don't see Robert Woods having any issues getting 1,000 yards this season and being a legitimate, probably high-end number 2, possibly reaches a number 1 type fantasy season.
So I'm going to do something gross here. I picked Kyler Murray, and I don't love going QB early, but I feel like my hand was kind of forced here. And this is why you got to be prepared for your drafts. You have to have a pivot strategy and a second option when things don't go your way, because players you want are going to be gone. And I had the option, did I want to reach for Myles Gaskin, who would have been my next running back on the board here, or did I want to give myself an advantage at a different position? So I decided to switch over to quarterback, Kyler Murray, who I think has a very real shot to finish as a top 2 quarterback in fantasy this season. If you look at what he did prior to his shoulder injury last year, he was ridiculous. I've also got myself a really great stack with him and DeAndre Hopkins on this team. And you look at his rushing values from last season. His rushing touchdown totals are probably coming down. He had 11 rushing touchdowns a season ago. Maybe he doesn't even crack double digits this year. But he is still a very real threat in that phase of the game. And again, Cliff Kingsbury just wants to throw the ball all over the field. And when Kyler Murray doesn't have an open player, he tucks it and runs. So I get an elite fantasy floor here with that elite upside. An early round quarterback, you could have taken Josh Allen, you could have taken Lamar Jackson here. But I chose to go with Kyler Murray because of the way I'd already constructed this team. I will say Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, who go 2 out of the next 3 picks, were my next 2 choices here. And I'm still not sure how to feel out this Cowboys pass-catching game here. Amari Cooper is the guy who you look at and you think he should be the X and the number 1 for this team, and he has great route running, great speed, the ability to just find the space in the zone defense, beat defenders deep down the field. But CeeDee Lamb it seems like that Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson vibe to me,
more hype right now.
Where CeeDee's been talked about by Dak Prescott publicly to the media. We know how talented he is. I could see him coming out here, and maybe Cooper has one of those Thielen-esque touchdown-dependent seasons that we saw last year where Jefferson just took the stranglehold of the target share in this offense, and maybe it leaves Cooper high and dry. And I love his talent. I love the opportunity. This is a team that's going to be passing a lot more than that Vikings offense was last season. But still, I think it's a tough read as to which one is going to be better. And I think you're taking somewhat of a risk either way. So I felt safer taking the Murray pick, knowing that there's a lot more wide receivers I love later on down the board that can give me some elite value and upside as well at different spots in the draft.
Yeah, I think Jokester found some value with Cooper Kupp there.
That's a great pick. I love Cooper Kupp in fantasy this year.
Round. He secured his tight end with Andrews, who should still be the probably number 1, if not number 2 target. We'll see how their rookies come in.
He had a very, very nice 25% of the target share in the Ravens offense last season, which is something that's a dream situation for a fantasy tight end. And although it was only 89 targets, that doesn't sound like very much at all because this Ravens team doesn't really throw the ball that much. He's getting the red zone looks you want. He is by far their best option down there, and he's a touchdown machine. So if he can keep cranking out those numbers, he'll be a top 5 fantasy tight end for a long time here.
Yeah. I like to see Waller go before Kittle as well earlier in the draft. That is how it should go.
He actually went after 211 Snake. Hang on here. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Kittle went one pick before.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Well, that's not what we want to see. We don't want to see that.
Yeah. I am glad it was closer than it has typically been, though.
Usually Kittle goes
much earlier. His ADP is actually 7 spots higher, and I talked about this in the draft guide yesterday, is that you got to be taking Darren Waller prior to George Kittle, because I think that the floor is safer, the touchdown upside is better. Over his first 4 seasons in the league, George Kittle hasn't had over 5 receiving touchdowns, and he's actually hit that marker twice. So it's a bit concerning as to why he hasn't been involved more down in that area of the field when he's such a dominant threat. But I think it's probably partially due to how good of a run blocker he is. They can just kind of barrel guys over. So
everyone's got a team 7 in their league. They pick
a team 7.
Worst team ever.
Literally, oh my lord. 5 straight running backs. You talk about the risky back scenario here. Travis Etienne, Josh Jacobs. I like DeAndre Swift at that spot, but when you pair him with Joe Mixon, come on. I mean,
this is a no receiver league.
He's getting himself a positional advantage there.
Yeah, that is...
Hey, if he hits on 3 of them, he's looking great, but where's the rest of your team, bro?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm thinking I want to dip back into the receiver market here because I'm not quite loving these running backs just yet. Deontay Johnson, Tyler Lockett, Brandon Ayuk are probably the top guys for me. Adam Thielen, again, I just talked about it a few minutes ago. He had 14 receiving touchdowns last year and failed to crack 1,000 yards receiving. So you're looking at an incredibly dependent touchdown play. So that's a different route than what I would like to go here. I think that just to change things up from prior episodes, I'm going to go back on the Deontay Johnson train here. He, in terms of PPR leagues, is a monster because of how much targets he sees. Typically, what you've been seeing from me here on these Monday mock drafts for you guys is I do like to go Brandon Ayuk at this draft position most typically. But we're going to switch things up here in today's episode. Ayuk, I think, has a great floor and ceiling, but Deontay Johnson just kind of changes things up a bit and is another player I think that deserves his praises when talking about as a elite floor play. And there you go. Why don't you break down your picks real quick? I like those 2 selections for you.
My team is basically the epitome of players that we have been talking up. I really like who I've been getting. Brandon Ayuk is a very strong receiver. He's someone that I think casuals don't really think about. And if you watch us enough, you know that Brandon Ayuk is someone who should be a top 10 wide receiver this season. That team doesn't really have a lot in legitimate pass catching besides Kittle. They're getting better, but a lot of their plays are like kind of run plays. They do play action, but then they need a legitimate receiver that can go up and get big catches, that can go downfield. And that's Brandon Ayuk. He's a legitimate receiver. And then Justin Herbert, he showed us that he is a awesome quarterback. He can move out of the pocket. He's got a giant arm.
We both hated Herbert so much going into
the draft. We were haters on Herbert,
so
but that we truly weren't scouting as much as we do now, which is just the truth. And I'm curious if we would have seen it in Herbert.
I don't think I really truly don't think that any amount of tape that we would have watched on Herbert, because you hear it from scouts as well. They're like, we didn't see this coming.
No.
Like,
and from an Oregon quarterback, you don't expect
he struggled
what he
in
can
college
do.
At times.
You don't expect what he can do in the NFL with how elusive he is and with how good, well he reads the field. Clearly, he has a pretty good situation with the Chargers, but he is the life of that offense at this point.
So with my 6.4 draft pick, I decided to go with Jamar Chase as my wide receiver 3 for this team. I feel that I went with really safe floor options in DeAndre Hopkins and Deontay Johnson, and while I think Hopkins still gives me an elite ceiling and Johnson will be hit or miss there, Jamar Chase is the player I think really does kind of blow the top off as being a rookie draft pick here. He's probably not going to be the most consistent player in the world, but in good matchups, particularly if you look at Joe Burrow's numbers against the Browns last year, he's going to have some big games. And Joe actually just came out yesterday and said that the connection is right back to where it was in their last season together at LSU. These two are pretty much one of the most dominant wide receiver quarterback combinations in NCAA history. So you look at what those two did together. Obviously, Chase won the Blitnikoff Award, had, I think, 2,000 yards receiving, and just dominated everyone that he played that year. So I think it's going to be a great combination in Cincinnati for the Bengals next season. And again, that upside's what I'm looking for here. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him finish as a top 20 fantasy receiver this year if he's healthy and produces enough big games, because we saw Justin Jefferson last year finish as a wide receiver 6, and we've seen other wide receivers like A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf finish right in the fray during their rookie season. So the potential is there for any number of these really talented rookies to finish up near the top of the receiver class this season. So a lot of interesting stuff to go on here. I was actually really thinking about taking, and I can say this since you're not going to draft between my next pick, I was really considering Javonte Williams, but the ADP was just a bit too far to reach. It would have been like a 20 draft position reach for me. So while Melvin Gordon is technically the best running back, Chase Edmonds also ahead of him, Raheem Mostert, James Robinson still better than him on the draft board. I don't personally believe, and there goes Javonte. Classic. Jokester making all the great picks here at the top of the board. Literally, as I'm talking about it, he goes prior to Chase Edmonds and Melvin Gordon, and I'm right here to say that is completely the right decision to make. Chase Edmonds does not have the goal line potential to keep up with a Javonte Williams once he hits the field. Melvin Gordon is literally the man in question here as to when he's going to lose the job to Javonte Williams. So if I were you, that's not a safe investment because he's going to lose that job at some point or another. Raheem Mostert, that's a player who he is so dang good when he's on the field, but can we really count on him to be on the field? And so it just didn't work out correct this time for me to actually land a Javonte Williams on this mock draft board. So I have to fill out at least 2 more running back spots on this roster. So I'm going to have to pivot at some point here and decide who those 2 options are going to be. Ronald Jones, notably, might be a nice decision to make for me. I could see a Leonard Fournette. Both of them are kind of hit or miss. They're going to be streaky running back 2 pickups that we can use. Damian Harris is a really nice floor pick, but his ceiling is virtually non-existent because he doesn't have any receiving shares. I hope someone takes Aaron Rodgers and wastes the draft pick here because we all know he's not playing this year. Salty Packer fandom alert.
He is not happy.
Yeah,
He's a Bucs fan only now.
I don't even know. I feel like I'm at such a loss. I don't even know if I should cheer for the Packers this year.
Do you want to cheer for the Bears?
No.
Oh.
I love the Packers, but I don't know whose side to take. I don't know who's in the right and who's in the wrong. I think they're both in the wrong, which is kind of annoying.
I think the athletes making millions are the ones taking Aaron's side, and then
yeah, exactly. And then the fans are like, "Come on, bro, just shut your mouth."
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've loved the Packers since day one. So I also feel like we wouldn't be in this situation if they handled things differently. So I'm mad at Aaron for being a diva and for just kind of being a stuck up brat. But I'm also mad at the Packers for letting him throw a temper tantrum. So you heard what he said on the match. That wasn't good. That was bad news. I'm afraid I've got some bad news. Bad stuff for Packer fans. So
it was a bad move.
Oh man, Rojo's off the board, and so is Devontae Smith. See, I don't like this at all.
Yeah.
I could use some high upside picks. Deebo Samuel, we were talking about the 49ers passing situation. He's got really high upside, more of a line of the scrimmage player. Just like a Robert Woods, he's catching those screen passes, and he is incredibly explosive. He can get out in space and make those big plays for you. I ended up missing out on the good tight end spot that I love to draft here. I love me some TJ Hawkinson this season. I can certainly get down for drafting some Mark Andrews as well.
High.
Kyle Pitts in the middle of the 5th might be a bit risky. I just made his draft profile yesterday. I gave him a 10 out of 10 in our instant draft guide ratings for ceiling, but I gave him a 5 out of 10 for his floor because we have not seen him play a game yet. There's so much uncertainty and question marks there. Not saying I don't love him as a pick, but
will he be a tight end or will he be a wide receiver?
He'll be a tight end, but he won't be your traditional end of the line of scrimmage player. He'll be split out wide. You know how Zach Ertz, and this is a much lesser athlete than a Kyle Pitts, but Zach Ertz frequently lines up in the slot. That's what I see them utilizing Pitts as, and he'll certainly line up in the backfield in the line or on hand down in the dirt on the line of scrimmage, but I don't think that'll be his primary role for this team. So I'm gonna take a chance here. I'm actually going to take Jerry Jeudy and fill out my receiver core in the hopes that a different player will fall down to me with my next selection here. Jerry Jeudy was probably one of the most disappointing fantasy players as a rookie last season. There you go with Michael Carter. He saw 113 targets, I believe it was, but he only caught 52% of his passes to him. So literally an awful catch percentage. But for a player who saw so much work in this offense, even though it's crowded, even though there's a million names to throw the football to, reportedly Teddy Bridgewater and Jerry Jeudy have the strongest connection at Broncos camp right now. I assume Teddy Bridgewater is going to win the starting job over Drew Lock, who can't make a good pass to save his life, make a good choice when throwing the football to save his life. He's got all the talent in the world. but just makes poor decisions. So I think Jerry Jeudy's got a lot of sleeper upside and potential here. And if you want to go out
right with Denver with you,
there you go, Noah Fant, and I'll actually be able to scoop up the player I want. I'll draft him here, but you can talk about your picks there.
Michael Carter is set to be the starter for the Jets. Not that the Jets' offensive line is any good, but that team is improving, and they will have a pass game to go with Michael Carter's run, and Carter can catch. With North Carolina, he was a receiving back as well as Javonte. There's no reason not to take a chance on a player like him in the
late 7th round.
So he could be a starter. Not that he's going to take the place of one of my starting running backs, but he could be a flex guy.
Absolutely.
That would be invaluable to any team. Noah Fant is just the top tight end that I saw. Mike Gesicki should be nice. Logan Thomas will probably get a good amount of targets. I know he's older, but Fitzmagic does love tight ends.
He does.
Mike Gesicki, they've been drafting so many tight ends, and he acts as like a run blocker for a whole game, and then all of a sudden he'll get a giant catch. His consistency is not great.
It's not good at all.
Noah Fant, my only issue with Noah Fant is that he just gets hurt a lot. He's a fantastic tight end. He's very talented. He's got good speed. He can catch the ball when it's thrown by Drew Lock, like behind him or like way above him. He'll catch it. But I'm just hoping that Bridgewater or Lock can just keep utilizing Fant and keep him safe by giving him a better ball, because I think that's part of why he's been injured. He's had to be kind of a mosser, not a mosser, but he's had contested catches where the ball is not thrown properly and it hurts him.
Yeah, and you can't blame him for that. The thing I'll say about Michael Carter is that he's technically the third stringer for the Jets right now, but nobody expects that to stay the same. Tevin Coleman is not it, Chief. He's going to get benched for Michael Carter. Carter was one of the most elusive backs in college football last year, and like Eric said, a really great receiving threat. So when he's already got super high upside and really nice stability with Montgomery and Akers, just bring in the next safest option. I ended up going with Trey Sermon, who I think has higher upside than Michael Carter, but we're not going to see Trey Sermon right away, and we're going to have to let him take time to overtake a Raheem Mostert in that offense. He's going to have to find the hot hand, and that Shanahan, it's a committee, so he's really, the issue with a Trey Sermon is that the floor value isn't really there, but the ceiling for any one of those backs is insane.
Everyone
and
gets
I
a
love
chance.
his skill set. He's going to be a bruiser on the goal line. He's got explosive ability in the open field. We've seen him leap over defenders in the college football playoff last season. So give me some Trey Sermon all day. I find a way to pick him in every single one of the mock drafts. I just got to get my hands on him. And for my RB3, I needed one very desperately.
Yeah.
I think he pairs well with the other two I've already got at the spot so far.
Sermon will definitely get a chance. We saw it happen with the 49ers, especially with injuries. They run so much that their running backs will get hurt and they will have to come in.
4 or 5 guys will get the opportunity to start for San Francisco. We literally saw Raheem Mostert, did we see Tevin Coleman start a game last season? Jerick McKinnon. Yep. Jamichael Hasty, and I swear Jeff Wilson started a game too.
Yeah, he did.
So that's literally 5 off the top of my head, and there's probably some other goon in there that I didn't.
And they all basically, like, Hasty was a legitimate pickup when he was starting to go in.
I started him a couple times and he got me good.
Not that he was fantastic, but that a guy like him will just get into the game. And Trey Sermon is a far more talented and physical player than Jamichael Hasty, and he will get an opportunity.
Why is it with Shanahan that literally every time they pencil in a reserve as the starting back, he does nothing, but when he's the third stringer on the team and a guy goes down in a game, he runs buck wild for 125 and 2 touchdowns. Literally, it's like insane what the players do.
As long as you're coming off the bench, you'll be insane. Like Fitzmagic when he would come off the bench.
All right, here we go. We've got a draft spot for me here. I've been having the board up for you guys to look at, so I haven't been scouting the players.
I'd love to talk about Curtis Samuel a little bit.
Yeah, if he falls to you, you can draft him.
Well, he got picked.
Did he already get picked? Where'd he go?
Yeah, he went at
the 9-1. Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. Okay.
So what I think of Curtis Samuel is that he's now going to be on a team where there's another. Well, he was already on a team, but now there's only 2 there's only 2 big targets for Washington football team, and Curtis Samuel had way more value in fantasy than people give him credit for. It was almost every week that he was getting 10 points in half PPR.
Yeah,
he is a gadget player, but he's also a legitimate pass catching player. Curtis Samuel is a very nice NFL player. I'm hoping that his value can translate to Washington. I think that Fitzmagic could work with him well. And then clearly Terry McLaurin is there to not take attention off, clearly, as he should have more coverage. Yes. But Curtis Samuel can have more opportunities.
Former OSU teammates together. So,
there you go.
Again, I don't like this 1-9 draft spot at all. And I feel like I just kind of have to sacrifice and make the best pick available to my team because I don't want to reach too high on somebody. I'm going to pick Jarvis Landry here. I don't think there's very much upside with this pick, but I do like the floor value. The Browns are not a high passing volume team, and they're just not going to throw the ball all over the yard when they've got Nick Chubb doing the things he's doing with Kareem Hunt back there as well. Mm-hmm. But what I do like is that Jarvis is the receiver that seems to have the best connection with Baker Mayfield. Odell's coming back from ACL surgery. I think he'll be fine and back to normal, but again, the volume just isn't there in this offense to produce 2 fantasy wide receiver 1s, and that's not even what I'm drafting Jarvis Landry as here. He's my wide receiver 4 on this team, and I think that he's going to be a bye week player for me, a good matchups, a streamer where I can bring him in, hope he comes up for 65, 70, 80 yards, maybe gets a touchdown as well on 6 or 7 catches, and can just put up a few reliable performances for me. So, again, I don't love this pick, but I think it's the best player available and a better option than a Corey Davis or a Marquise Brown, a Michael Gallup, who are the next best options on the table at this spot.
This may be a reach from where we're at, but I'm going to take Marvin Jones first.
Don't mind that.
He should be technically the number 1 with Jacksonville.
You would think.
But he's a legit receiver. He always finds value. He has great route running, and he's not a diva, so I expect him to work well.
Quiet, yeah.
I expect him to work well with Trevor Lawrence and kind of be the veteran guy that he can look to. Otherwise, guys are really just disappearing.
They are. It's getting we're getting thin out here. We only got 6 rounds left here, so
I would say it's not a bad idea to go with Trevor Lawrence as my number 2 QB if I was to have Herbert go down. And to see if there's value with Lawrence. Not that he would outshine Herbert, but Corey Davis is interesting with the Jets. I think that's going to be my pick. Corey Davis.
He has a legit shot to be the number 1 there. I think that I really like me some Elijah Moore and the upside that he presents. But Corey Davis is the more proven talent, and we saw how good he could be with Tennessee last year, so give him more opportunities in New York.
Yeah. I think that Davis is just he has the prototype build of a number 1 compared to Elijah Moore, but
sure.
we see Darnell Mooney, who could pretty much be a number 1. He was going against Jalen Ramsey and made him look foolish. So I think that Elijah Moore has the potential. He learned just like Odell. He learned who else was Odell with, like that group. I think Jarvis Landry as well, but that Elijah Moore is known as a slot guy, but he can play as a big man just like Darnell Mooney has shown. That he can jump up, he can play against big corners and make plays.
Yeah, and they could certainly all be players that line up outside as X receivers for given plays as well. So I've actually got 2 really nice situations for me. I love me some Jamal Williams, but I'm going to disregard him here at this draft spot. And this is actually something that I think if you're still sticking around in today's video, you're getting some nice information here. I've got some handcuff backs that I have the option. Gus Edwards and Tony Pollard both pertain to my roster. But I'm going to talk about why I think Gus Edwards is the better pick here. Not only if you have J.K. Dobbins, but just in general if you're looking for another running back for your bench. Gus Bus absolutely has standalone value in fantasy leagues because of the touchdown volume he gets on the goal line. That's something that's not going to change. This is still somewhat of a committee in Baltimore. J.K. is not going to be getting 20-plus touches per game. Maybe he gets 12 to 16 on a per-game basis, but he's really explosive with those. He'll find his way into the end zone as well. But Gus Edwards is definitely going to still be a factor and utilized in this offense. He just signed an extension, and he's going to be a bruiser down there. He's a big back, not very fast, but he can run players over. So if you're looking for a streamer, a sleeper pick down here in the 10th round, Gus can definitely be your guy that if you need a plug and play, just cross your fingers he finds the end zone. He might do so a couple times, and you'll be looking pretty nice in that category if you need an RB2 or a flex start for 1 week. So, and then Tony Pollard was the other guy, obviously handcuffing Zeke, who I picked with my first selection here in today's draft. I think Pollard will come in, make some nice explosive plays, but obviously, as opposed to a Gus Edwards, I would say that he has less standalone value and is more of a high upside play when he is the team's lead back in a draft.
My next point in this draft is that we have some legitimate wide receivers on the board still. John Brown is all the way down there. He's going to be the number one. Nelson Aguilar is still on the board as well.
Best deep threat on the Pats roster.
Those are players that deserve to be on teams. Clearly, you do want to get your handcuffs. Like, I'd want to get Tevin Coleman just in case he is getting more touches than Carter, and then eventually Carter may beat him out. And it was nice that I had Coleman for safety. I like seeing Darnell Mooney go to Jokester. That is a great pick. I think Darnell Mooney deserves a spot on teams. His ADP is generally lower than that, I believe. So that was a little bit of a reach, which I am totally okay with. I see high upside for Mooney and a decent floor considering how many times he got the ball in his limited play with the Bears last season. He didn't start right away. Tony Pollard. So he took Tony Pollard from me. You can't get that handcuff.
That's all right. I've got two names I'm really hoping to follow me on the board here. Let's just quick talk Jokester here. He's been checking out all the videos, commenting on nearly every single one of them. He has been getting a great draft strategy put together. I actually did a mock draft with him offline the other day, and he put together a really nice group in that mock as well. So shout out to him. He's got some good stuff going on here. The Triple X Man. Let's check out his draft board. Saquon, Najee Harris. I like that 2 wide receiver pairing with Josh Allen. Get yourself some really nice upside with Cortland Sutton in the mid to late 6th round. Rojo in the 7th. I like that. Not a huge fan of A.J. Dillon or Logan Thomas, but I know that you like Logan Thomas more than I do. I just have my realistic concerns about him being a former quarterback who switched to tight end for 1 year in a talent-depleted offense, managed to find his way into 110 targets. You get what I'm saying here? Like, I just think there's too many outliers that when you add in Diami Brown, Curtis Samuel, like they're trying to create avenues to not have to throw him the ball 110 times this season, which is why I don't love it there. So, he's the top player on the board based off ADP. I have to take him. Rob Gronkowski is going to be my tight end pick here. And a lot of these players, we've been doing a lot of profiles lately. Rob Gronkowski in the draft guide, I talked about him as a perfect late round draft pick at the tight end position. He's not going to be a greatly consistent player for you.
No.
But what I talked about is you know exactly what you're getting on a week-to-week basis out of Gronk, that you don't have to put unrealistic expectations up for him to basically ensure that he doesn't feel like a letdown for you. Do you know what you're getting week to week out of Jonnu Smith? No, you don't, because Cam Newton threw more interceptions than touchdown passes last year. He started 16 games, and I think he threw 10 touchdowns. Mike Gesicki, I mean, they just drafted another tight end, brought in 2 wide receivers. Do you know what we're getting from him on a week-to-week basis? No. Irv Smith, new starter on the Vikings offense. The previous guy was a run-blocking threat, and Irv Smith's more of a receiving option. Mike Zimmer even came out and said that Irv Smith's not going to see an expansive role in this offense this year. Do we know what we're getting from him? No. You get the point here. Robert Tonyan, not a pick I like as well from my Packers. He caught 52 of 59 targets last season and had 11 touchdowns. That's not going to happen again. Gronk is a player that you know Tom's going to throw him a couple balls a week. He's going to throw him 2 or 3 passes, maybe 4 if you're lucky, and you're just hoping he catches 1 in the end zone, because that's where Brady's looking for him when he throws him the ball. Is he going to catch a touchdown or is he not? That's what it comes down to every week. If Gronk catches the pass, 6 points. He filled out your expectations for him that week. If he doesn't, whatever. He's still going to give you 2 or 3, maybe 4 or 5 fantasy points if you can rack up yardage on those other passes. And we actually saw him come on rather strong towards the end of last season. He's getting older. He's not the player he once was. and that offense is still very crowded. He only saw, I believe, 13% of the work share in that Buccaneers offense last season, but it's enough for me. I know the touchdown upside is there, and if I can just get a hold of some of those touchdowns, it's fine for me because I've built the rest of this roster to be so strong at every other spot that I can be fine living or dying off a Gronkowski touchdown, and I don't think that's what my week is going to come down to a lot of the time. So I like that pick there.
I have so many wide receivers. I'm hoping to get a fourth running back here, but I'm not seeing the value that I'd like. It's kind of just going to be handcuffing.
You could wait a couple rounds.
What I'm going to do is take Aguilar here.
Well, there you go. It makes my player fall right into my lap.
And then I'm going to wait for, and that Elijah Moore was my other option.
At least with Aguilar, you get the proven talent.
Yeah.
And for Elijah Moore, I'm kind of just taking a dart throw here, hoping that he can assert himself as the one in this offense. But
and Aguilar, I already took Corey.
Aguilar for the Pats could actually be very big time. We saw what he did with Derek Carr and the Raiders last season on very limited opportunities. Mm-hmm. If Mac Jones comes in this offense, the deep passing game will instantly get a lot better because as much of a naff as he is, he still has a much better touch and accuracy than Cam Newton does. So Cam's little slingshot that he does is not gonna be it, Chief. But he's gonna come back here, and I don't know. Aguilar could it feels weird to say it because this guy used to be the joke of the NFL, but he could score 10 touchdowns because this Pats offense.
Amari Cooper had the same problem with the Raiders.
Exactly, they signed so many players. The Pats did, but none of them are established outside of the tight ends. Someone has to step up as a receiver for this offense. And N'Keal Harry, way to go, bud, just requested a trade. What have you done? I've got him on my Dynasty team, but I still don't like you.
A ham sandwich is what he will be traded for this offseason.
I'll trade you for a ream of printer paper.
So there's Ryan Fitzpatrick goes.
Fitzmagic in the 13th round.
So
there
his quarterbacks are Ryan Tannehill
and
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
That's awesome. And Tannehill's one of my favorite late round streamers. That's a perfect. And then that let him pick the rest of his early rounds on the draft very, very well, and he filled out the rest of his depth really awesome.
That is so funny. I love it. Tannehill is a legitimate starting quarterback. I personally like to have him as a backup, a safe backup, but Kirk Cousins is more of a backup than Tannehill. Tannehill just throws deeper more often.
I'll ride or die with Ryan as my QB1.
And they are so similar though because Kirk Cousins throws a lot.
Dude was a consistency king.
Yeah, and he throws for touchdowns. So
he's got those elite receivers. If Kirk didn't have elite receivers, he absolutely would not have those numbers. No. But he does. So
Kirk Cousins isn't as bad as people make him seem. He's just getting paid a lot, and he's kind of
all guaranteed money. For Kirk Cousins.
He's just kind of a piece of paper, and I don't know.
One of the funniest things. One of the funniest things to me is when he gets sacked and they literally just truck him on the ground. The defenders literally just grab him by the neck and just...
He just lets it happen.
Yeah, poor Kirk. Oh, it's my pick. Okay. So let's take a look at the team here. We've got some nice depth at the running back receiver positions. I filled out the one remaining starting spot in the lineup that I was really concerned about, that being the tight end spot with my touchdown streaming Rob Gronkowski pick. Nice old Deshaun Watson still on the board here, but not too concerned about that. I don't always feel the need to draft a second quarterback either, just because it's so deep and you can stream someone off the waiver wire if you need to. I'm not anticipating needing to start somebody over Kyler Murray for even more than 2 games this season. So Zach Wilson could be a nice pickup, though. Just tossing that name out there as a late-round pick here. But J.D. McKissic has some standalone value. Maybe I snatch up Tevin Coleman for you for a couple weeks.
There you go.
Maybe he enters the season as the starter, but quickly loses that starting job. John Brown's on the board here, a sleeper receiver I really love. I'm feeling good with the 4 running backs I do have, so maybe I make one more draft pick later on. I see a couple names I like down there, so I'm actually going to take my John Brown pick here and just add some more depth and upside at the wide receiver spot. I'm not going to be shocked whatsoever if John Brown comes out and finishes as the top and most productive pass catcher in that Raiders offense this year. Henry Ruggs can't run routes, and Hunter Renfrow is not... The floor and the ceiling both really aren't there.
He always surprises me.
He doesn't see enough looks, and sometimes he has nice fantasy games, but he is definitely a waiver wire stream for a couple games. And then Bryan Edwards, another name to keep your eye on, but he dealt with some injuries last season, and we haven't really seen it from him yet at the next level. So John Brown's shown us in 3 spots, 3 different locations. He can be a very productive player with the Bills, the Ravens, and the Cardinals. All very good years and productive seasons for him with those different organizations. So I feel confident with John Brown and his ability to step up this year.
I think that I'm going to...
Man, there's so many receivers you could pick up here that have upside. That's insane that there's so many names there.
I think I'm just going to go with Damian Williams now.
All right.
And get my other handcuff. My issue... Well... The thing with the Rams is that there isn't really a handcuff because he's kind of the only guy at this point, is he not?
You could make a case that Darrell Henderson might be sprinkled in.
Yeah.
And he certainly, I think, already went at this spot.
Yeah, he did. He went.
But,
that's fine.
And he might have a couple games. I actually stacked them in Dynasty. I've got Akers and Henderson along with JT and Sanders in Dynasty. I don't expect Henderson to take opportunity away from Akers. I think it's more so going to be a relief thing if he gets banged up because they're both smaller players and neither of them are like workhorse backs, I would say. Like, I expect Akers to be used as a workhorse back, but I question whether or not the durability is there, so it would be great if you could get that option there. And we'd love to see that from Akers because the explosiveness is so great. I actually kind of attribute him to a Dalvin Cook type of player, and they both have similar play styles, went to the same college, obviously came from the same system, so you love to see that there. I might dip into the quarterback spot just once here to take a high upside pick here, and I'm just going to take a shot at Zach Wilson. You don't need to pick a second quarterback when you take one so early like a Kyler Murray, but the rest of the players here, I've already invested into the wide receiver position so many times. I feel comfortable not doing so again in this mock draft. Tight end is absolutely something that I would encourage you not to draft 2 of. I mean, I guess you more so, if you're going to pick a late round streamer or an early round tight end, don't pick 2. But if you're going to pick some of those guys in the mid rounds like Eric did, then I would say you probably should do so because you're going to need an insurance policy because more likely than not, one of those 2 players isn't going to work out, and one of them will be fairly productive and give you starting level numbers that you want to see. So whether it is Hunter Henry snatching up touchdowns for the Pats or if Noah Fant can establish himself in that Broncos offense, maybe you get extremely lucky because the tight end position is so hard to hit on and both of them work out. You've then got to trade assets. So some players that I wouldn't encourage you, though, to draft 2 of is when we see these Gesicki's and Tanyans, the Higbees, the Smiths of the worlds, the Everetts, the Ingrams. Those are all flyer picks, and at that point, you're more worthwhile just taking one of them and riding with them, and if it doesn't work out, just use the waiver wire to find another option. I mean, look at Logan Thomas, Robert Tonyan, both came from the waiver wire last season. Jonnu Smith probably wasn't being drafted a lot of the time last year, so there's just a lot of ways to attack the tight end spot without investing multiple picks into them if you're taking one of those late round flyers or that early round investment. So winding down here with the picks.
I suppose I'll get another QB. Where is he? Did he go?
Nice. The weather just came up.
Is it going to rain?
I don't think so. I hope not.
It's pretty nice out.
Hope
it's
it doesn't.
Nice out today.
No.
Were you gonna get
Trisk's picked Ramondre from me. He was gonna be my late round flyer at the running back spot to snatch up some upside. What? Wait, what? That's Vinny Testaverde. What the heck? He's like 50 years old.
They put
how far
Vinny
did
Testaverde in here.
How far down did you scroll for that?
Not too far. My quarterback.
Wait, 24 years old. What?
Is it Vinny Testaverde Jr.?
It could be. I think Testaverde played for Tampa Bay.
Signed by Tampa.
So crazy.
That'd be funny.
Oh my god.
I feel like we would have heard about that. I'd make a TikTok about that.
You could. That'd be.
Hey, check out the TikTok. I make good TikToks.
You should make more. You should
personally.
You should make more of them then.
Yeah. He makes some TikToks too.
All right. I guess the only running back left that I see with standalone value. I hate you, Sony Michel, so I'm not even gonna look at you. I'm just going to go James White as having some passing usage in that offense there in New England. There's so many guys. Everyone has a role. It's whatever. I mean, I could have went with Malcolm Brown from Miami and taken the player, that has touchdown, goal line upside. He might snatch some of those carries away from Miles Gaskin and Salvin Ahmeds of the world. But I don't know. It's kind of wishy-washy. We're in the 15th round. The running backs are pretty despair here. Basically, it's time for me. I've got one pick left, so it's defense time.
I'm tempted to go with Mac Jones.
Matthew McCorkle.
Yeah, Matthew McCorkle. Derek Carr, maybe. Sam Darnold. I feel like I can take a risk on Sam Darnold.
You can certainly take a risk at this spot. Who's your first QB? Yeah, Herbert. You've got room
I'll take a little risk on Sam, and then I'm gonna get a defense, I suppose, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the last pick, so you're gonna be left.
Oh, I get to pick whatever defense I want.
You get the choice of the whole board.
All right. We want Tampa. I think it's only right. Their defense is literally the same, and it should only be
fingers crossed for Washington
together.
Didn't fall to me. All right. Well, I can live with taking the Rams. I take them over San Fran because I think that Ramsey and Donald are just too good. You talk about the other pass rushers and the ability for this Rams team, and this is the best defensive drafting I've seen in any of the mock drafts. I mean, we've got just jokes of teams going in the previous mocks.
Isn't a bad choice either. Ravens defense is always something.
Find defenses in fantasy. This is how you find a good fantasy defense. Find a team with a good pass rush and a good enough secondary to hold down the fort and capitalize off of hit quarterbacks and batted passes. So that's exactly what those first 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think the first 8 defenses.
The Giants are a sleeper defense this season.
Those are all teams that have pass rushers, can get after it, and have good enough back ends to get you those turnovers and whatnot. The Seahawks, the Titans, the Pats, all very solid picks as well. So this might have just been the best mock draft we've had here on Mock Draft Monday.
Took me being here.
Thanks for tuning in, you guys. There we go. That was another episode of Mock Draft Monday here on the SFS channel, joined once again by Eric. So thanks so much for stopping by today, Eric. We enjoyed having you on the channel, and we'll have you on much more in the future as we approach the 2021 season. Remember, go join the Discord down in the description of this video. You can get that link and get access to that completely free, and then you can be in next week's episode of Mock Draft Monday. Again, one more time for Eric, since he's around today, make sure to check out those social medias and that TikTok in particular so that you can get yourself access to some of the content that he makes for the channel here behind the scenes. So
I think they're good.
I think they're pretty quality as well. I mean, we've had a couple that have done very nicely. So help Eric grow even more on TikTok and blow that thing up. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. Today's video was very fun to create and record for you all. And I hope to see you guys tomorrow for our next episode of ADP Battles. We'll see you next time. Peace out.